Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Today Untitled Packers podcast. We are back after yet another heartbreaking NFC Championship loss. We're back, me and Bron. We're here to talk about it, the ramifications of what it means for this franchise going forward. I mean, I don't even need to ask you how you're feeling, Bron. I already know how you're feeling. You're feeling exactly how I do. But how are you dealing with the loss, buddy?
I'm not.
You're just not
It's
dealing with
hard.
it? Yeah, I mean,
It's hard. It's hard. It's hard because this is this felt like the best shot.
it did, man. It felt like this was the year. It felt this team had destiny written all over it. This was going to be the year we finally get to the big one and win it. And same story we've heard a million times.
Yeah, it was a rough game, and the fact that it started off not great, and we crawled all the way back with a chance to win it at the end, and everything about it was just really demoralizing and not a fun one, obviously, and a hard way to end. Probably what looked like the best team that we've had since I would say 2011 probably. So it's just tough, and obviously all the uncertainties that we know what's going on, and who knows who's going to be back with the cap space and all different things, different situations going on, coaches being fired, who knows what's going to happen. It's a hard situation as a fan to be a part of.
Yep, and it's nothing new to us here in Green Bay. This is at least the best team that we've had since at least 2014. And funnily enough, the season ended in a very similar fashion in the playoffs, where it's like, this is the most hurt I've been after a Packers playoff loss since 2014 for sure. I don't know what to do with myself, and it's because there's not one thing you can point at in this one where that's the issue. If that didn't happen, there's like 20 different things, just tiny little things where if one of them would have went our way, it would have been a much different result. And that's exactly what happened in 2014. Just knowing that you should have won that game. The Packers should have won this game a million different ways. They should have won this game. And now we have to sit for 2 weeks hearing about the Buccaneers and the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, hearing about Tom Brady going for his 7th ring, 10th appearance. It hurts. It really hurts, and it's it's hard to take my mind off of it when this is like the Packers, the only thing I care about in life, and we got to deal with this. It's so painful, but I'm glad we do this, Braun. I'm glad we're able to talk about this. I'm glad you're here with me. I mean, we've had conversations since the game about how painful it is, but you'd think by now we'd be more used to this and be able to handle our emotions better, but God, that game just hurts so bad.
Yeah, Griff, that's really what it is, and I guess let's talk about the game a little bit, just because we're gonna go through what went wrong and all the different things that went down. So, number one, I think things really spiraled out of control right before half. We all know how it kind of got off to a slow start, and it was 14-10 at that point, and we had the ball. There was a chance for us to score and even maybe double up, and that was the goal, to get to a point where we'd be up by a couple scores. And then Rodgers obviously threw that pick, which Lazard got held on and they didn't call it, and that was the first of the many missed calls by the officiating. And then we saw that the pick happened, and then we had to basically hope that the Bucs didn't get a field goal, and we at worst we could they'd get a field goal, and then we could tie it up at the beginning of the third quarter. And of course, we all know it ended up being these different crazy things that happened. We call timeout on fourth down, and then they come back, and that ball gets thrown by Brady and Kevin King, of course, right there. Scotty Miller touchdown, and that was such a dagger. That made it feel like it was going to be a really hard thing to do, to have to come back in this game, which it was. That was such a game changing play. It was just so unbelievable when it happened. Of all the things, and you saw the ball in the air, and so much separation from Miller on King. I mean, it was like you knew he was going to catch it as soon as he threw it. You see the ball traveling through the air. I mean, wow. It's just hard
Yeah,
to really go through that.
I'll never forget the feeling of it was like slow motion. Well, the camera panning over to Kevin King one on one with their fastest receiver like 5 yards behind him, and I stand up and I'm like, "What are you doing?" I mean, everyone and their mother has touched on what a horrible call that is from Mike Pettin with 8 seconds left when the Buccaneers have no timeouts. God, I mean, what can you even say about what are you doing? That is Greg Williams esque from the Jets game against the Raiders, where they lost the game on something like that. Just a horrible. LaFleur said after the game was man coverage. Man coverage? Why? Why is there single high safety? And why is it Will Redmond? And why isn't he over helping King when Jair is on the other side and hasn't given up a catch in 3 weeks? Why? So many things about that play. And then why is Kevin on Scotty Miller? Why is Kevin not more prepared for the go route? I mean, come on. Just that's one of the many little things that just oh, really? A touchdown before halftime. It was 14-10, make that 21-10. God, dude.
It
God. Just
such a killer, such a killer. I mean, that completely changed the outlook of the game from like I said, we could have been up going into the half, and then you turn around and look and you're down 11 points. I mean, what a tough pill to swallow. And that was really the beginning of heartbreak, because we would go on and turn the ball over on the first possession. I mean, and then we get down 28-10 after Aaron Jones fumbled for his second time, and that's tough for him. I mean, wow, I don't see him coming back at this point because he turned down a great offer from the Packers to make him a top 5 paid running back in the league. He wants more guaranteed money. It looks like. I don't know if I doubt they give it to him. So, just to kind of talk about that a little bit, but I I don't know. I mean that was such a turning point. And that, when we're down 28-10, it's like, wow. I couldn't believe that even happened. To get we get the ball back and then to just have Rodgers throw it right to Jones and Jones just fumbles it. It was just a shocking. That was just as heartbreaking, obviously, because then you really didn't feel like they had a chance to come back. And of course, we find a way to, and things kept going downhill from there.
yeah, we had the ball with about 30 seconds left in the first half, and we knew we were getting the first possession of the second half. That's a perfect double up spot. We've seen it done so many times with Green Bay. And the Buccaneers are the ones who ended up doubling up and turning a 14-10 lead into a 28-10 lead. And at that point I thought, oh god, this game is not headed in the right direction. They gave me some false hope, as the game went on. But at that point, yeah, you're definitely thinking, God, another one of these NFC Championship game blowouts. Are you kidding me? And this is like what I said at the beginning, where you can't put your finger on one thing that went wrong in this game. Like last year was the run defense. We got to get better there. 2016 it was the secondary. We got to get some corners for this defense. There's a million things that just I like what do you even put your finger on as the blame for this loss? I mean, you can't really pick anything out. There's just like Aaron Jones. Is he the reason we lost? He's been one of our best players for the last 3 years. No, he just didn't play well enough. And that's the same case for everyone. Kevin King, I guess if you're doing the blame pie, Kevin King probably takes home the biggest slice. But even it's like, he's inconsistent, but he's not the worst player in the world, and he hasn't been a gaping hole in the secondary all season long. And then other things like the refs. I guess the refs get a little tiny piece of that blame pie because that interception would have never happened. Oh God, I'm getting worked up over here, Ron.
There's definitely a lot of blame to go around. I mean, first of all, like you mentioned, that halftime situation really changed the game, and that was, you could blame that on the blame even just on that sequence alone. Um, there's so much blame to go around. Uh, Aaron Jones, it sucks to have him perform that way in the biggest game of his career. It really does, and it's if that was his last game, as a Packer in Lambeau, that's really unfortunate to have him fumble twice and really not provide anything of value. Um, that's unfortunate, definitely. Um, yeah, I mean, there were drop picks, there were dropped balls, by the offense. Obviously, the officiating. Griff, I'm not gonna lie to you, that was some of the worst officiating I've ever seen, and especially in a playoff game where this is supposed to be like an all-star crew of officials. That I was embarrassed for the league at that point watching that football game, and it's not the first time, but I felt like this was one of the worst instances of where just repeated just negligence by the officials. And I don't understand it really, because it's blatant holds that they've been calling all year, and I don't know who decided to just like completely take those away from the game, but it would have been nice to know, prior to the game, or at least some kind of consistency, because we saw at the end of the game, on a play where it probably was pass interference, but the ball wasn't in range for it to be caught. It's just like the rule is just so. I just don't know anything about the rule at this point, because they talk about this, is the ball catchable, and then that's just obviously not a factor on the last play. Yes, King grabs and tugs at his shirt or whatever, but I mean, it's no more than what happened to Alan Lazard on multiple occasions. Devontae, coming off the line of scrimmage, was grabbed on many occasions as well. If you watch some of the replays back on different routes that he's run, I mean, it was just, I was embarrassed for the league. Um, and frankly, the fact that they call that an all-star officiating crew, that's just embarrassing in and of itself. So for me, that was definitely something that I'm gonna feel like took this game away from us in a large part.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, the refs is obviously just an annoying aspect of the game, but I can't put too much blame on the refs because the Kevin King hold, it does look pretty blatant. The thing that irritates you is that he threw the flag so late. So what is it that made him think PI? Was it when the ball went over his head and then Tyler Johnson just falls on the ground? Was that it? Does that make him think PI, and that's what makes him throw the flag? Because you can see it from the back angle. He watches King grab the jersey, and it's not really slowing down the receiver at all. He's just hanging on, which I don't know, subjective. Call it what you want there, but he doesn't
It's
throw the
something.
flag at
You
that
see
point.
it. You see his shirt like stretching, but that's like, it's pretty clear that he's not really being inhibited by what King is doing. That shirt is
Yeah.
obviously very stretchy, and it's just being like, like you said, he's kind of along for the ride there. But the ball's
Yeah.
not anywhere near. He's not anywhere near the ball there. I mean, the ball. Brady threw a really rough throw on that ball, and of course Tyler Johnson sells that thing like, just a complete flop.
Yeah, and you
And
can see the ref throws the flag after he sells it. So what
I
made him
know.
think PI?
It could have been anything. Not to mention the fact that we're all thinking we got to stop here, and Rodgers is going to have a chance to win the game.
Oh
Uh,
my god.
and then of course 5 seconds goes by, and we see the flag, and then it really sinks in that, okay, they just threw this flag. Unless by some miracle they picked this flag up, this game is over. I mean, what a way to go from thinking you have a chance with Aaron Rodgers to win this football game to now realizing the game is over. I mean, wow.
Yeah.
Just a
I'll never forget that feeling, that little 4 to 5 seconds when they didn't throw the flag where I'm like, oh, there's the yellow. Oh my god, there's the yellow.
complete Packers
They
classic heart.
haven't the thing they haven't called all game long. They're gonna call right here on a bad throw by Tom Brady. Of course.
Yeah, I mean, that was just rough. It was so brutal. Um, to have it end that way, that's just so classic, like Packers, the way a game would end. It's just wow. I mean, it's hard to even describe all the emotions, because it truly was just a roller coaster of emotions throughout that whole game. Starting off not great, then the MVS huge play from Rodgers, deep ball over Carlton Davis. That touchdown got us right back in the game, and then Brady goes down and scores again. We get a field goal. It's 14-10. We hit the ball back, and then that whole sequence, the doubling up at half happens for the Bucks, and which was
Wait,
demoralizing.
that field goal you mentioned, that's a big turning point in the game as well because that came off of a Devontae dropped touchdown. Something that
Yep.
hasn't happened all year long happens right there. A dropped touchdown. That's a 4-point swing.
Yeah, not to mention the fact that, that Devontae didn't have a great game on Sunday, and that was unfortunate. The guys that we expect, and this is why I predicted us, to win, because I just thought that game was such an anomaly. Guys like Devontae, Aaron Jones, Rodgers, our offensive line, our whole season has been predicated on what those guys have been able to do and how good they've been. Rodgers is the MVP. Rodgers was really the only one that, who didn't play well last time around that actually came around to play. And he had a great game. The one pick was, I'm not going to even hold him to that too much because it was at the end of the half and there was the holding on Lazard. The ball went, that was right there for Lazard. It was really a gorgeous throw. And it just got undercut as, whoever was holding Lazard had a huge grip on the shoulder of Lazard and then just undercut him. I mean, it's just what it is. If they're not going to call it, I really don't blame Rodgers much for that at all. But
Yeah,
other than that, I thought he had a great game.
that throw to Lazard that was picked off was the same exact throw we saw in the second half to MVS, where the defender has his head turned to him, and you know what Rodgers has always said his whole career: if I can see the back of the defender's helmet, that means my guy's open. And it was a perfect example of that being true because I don't know if you remember that throw, Bron, up the seam to MVS. I think it was in the
Yeah,
third quarter. That was a beauty, and that was the same thing that he was trying to fit into Lazard. Just MVS wasn't being held.
yeah. I mean, number one, I just think that to have those guys not play well was surprising to me. Devontae specifically because I don't think Carlton Davis is a special guy. Like I don't think he's even close to Jalen Ramsey, who Devontae had he had his way with him for the most part. In that last playoff game. And Devontae had no problem really getting open much, but of course he was getting double teamed at times and things like that. But um, just to have they were missing a couple guys, especially in the back end of that secondary. Those two safeties they were missing, one for the latter half, but the other Antoine Winfield ended up missing that whole game. And to not be able to really have a much more effective day passing the football, apart from what Rodgers was doing with like MVS and Lazard made a couple plays, Tunyon had a couple plays, and Devontae had a few plays as well. But I really feel like it wasn't as effective as it should have been. And of course, we talked about Aaron Jones not coming to play, and then the offensive line really just having no answer for a lot of the same stuff that we saw in Week 6. Just not really an answer for it, and that was why I was surprised. It ended up not being like this anomaly game. I don't know what happened. It's like all that same stuff happened again. So I mean, do you call that an anomaly? I don't know what it is. And for this game to be at Lambeau, just wow, it hurts. I mean, to have this, we wanted this, and we asked to get it at Lambeau, and it seemed like the cold had no effect on what they were doing in Tampa over there, and it's just I don't know. It's hard. It's so hard to try to decipher what went wrong in this game because there was so many things, like you mentioned, Griff, that just didn't go our way.
Yeah, the weather. I think we all wanted it to be a little bit colder than it was. It was only about 28 at kickoff, 29. It's cold, but we wanted those frozen tundra conditions, and we didn't really get that. But I mean, God, I mean the offensive line that you touched on. It's like that's another thing that all year has been so good, and we've been praising all year, and it just the tackles. We really missed David Bakhtiari in this game, and you could tell because it didn't matter who Billy Turner was blocking on the left tackle spot. He was not good enough in this game. And a lot of people are upset that later in the game we stopped running the ball when it was a one-score game and we could have just played our offense and we didn't run. We like after the back-to-back Jair interceptions, we threw 6 passes and 2 punts. I'm not really upset about that. I'm upset about just which passing plays we called because it was ridiculous the amount of times we were just doing, your standard 5-step dropbacks with 5 pass protectors, no help for the tackles. It was that is some Mike McCarthy nonsense right there. When your tackles are struggling the entire game and you're just going to leave them on an island time after time.
Yeah, I really agree with everything you just said. First of all, the same people that are complaining about the 6 passes in a row or whatever are the same people saying that we shouldn't have kicked the field goal. And, not that I don't agree with that, but, to put the ball in Rodgers' hands or whatever, like, it's just like these narratives people like to come up with as to why we didn't win. Look, I have no problem passing definitely with, because Aaron Jones was hurt and whatever, like, who's running the ball? AJ Dillon, okay, like Jamal, okay, but if we're trying to score, I don't mind Rodgers getting that opportunity. But it's harder when his guys aren't playing well enough, specifically the line not giving him enough time. It's I don't know. There was really no solution to finding a way to get that done. And the one thing, like you said, Griff, I don't understand the multitude of plays, especially closer to the red zone with 5 receivers. I mean, what is that? Especially on that last sequence to get, where we ended up going and kicking the field goal. I mean, wow. Unbelievable to not even threaten with the run. At the 8-yard line. I'm just shocking. I mean, what are we going here? Like, what's going on? Because number one, like you mentioned, these tackles are not playing well enough, and they're getting beaten. And it's not, they're not. Those are 2 great pass rushers, Shaq Barrett and Jason Pierre-Paul. Those are 2 great pass rushers, and they obviously showed that on Sunday. So when you're gonna, I just don't understand. It's like these coaches, and it's not just not just Matt LaFleur, because it's also on defense as well. We saw it all game long. They're playing they're just playing with pieces. They're playing with their scheme. They just choose the plays over the players. It's just the stubbornness of coaching in this league. They rely on the plays, like they don't account for the players in the game anymore, and I just don't understand why that is. And we saw that become a huge issue when Rodgers was left there all by himself, forced to get rid of the ball as fast as possible, or he was going to get dropped. It was just rough. I thought Matt LaFleur had not a great game, obviously, from a play calling standpoint, and obviously we'll talk about the defense too. And I don't think either side was good enough.
And you talk about the being stubborn with your scheme and not adjusting for the personnel that you have on hand. That's something that we never see that from LaFleur. That's one of his biggest strengths as a coach, is coaching his offense around the personnel he has. And it just all went away in this one. And it's just so odd that the offense we have been seeing since September just vanished at that point, where we're going, why are we going 5 wide against
What
such a
happened to the
great pass
play
rush?
action? What
What
happened to
happened
the
to the
play action?
What happened to the under center stuff, the bootleg stuff? What happened to this easy stuff, the motion that we were taking advantage of against every team in the league? It just all went away for those 2 series, and it ended up being the most important series in the game, those 2. And I kind of get it, because up until that point, Rodgers was in full control. He was dialed in, tossing dimes, hitting the open receiver on every play. And then we just couldn't block him. I think that's what it is. I haven't watched the All-22. I've been trying to stay as far away from this game as possible, but I'm thinking that it seemed like that we had a lot of deep shots called, because it's like Aaron just he this year especially, he's been so good at getting rid of the ball before he gets sacked. He's protected the offensive line more than anyone gives him credit for. And he wasn't getting rid of the ball. He was taking sacks. He took 5 sacks in this game. What is going on? I don't know what happened.
Well, number one, I you saw it on a lot of the replays they were showing just in the game alone, where guys were getting open, but Rodgers was he just got sacked. I mean, what was he? I think he was sacked 5 times, and on all those sacks, the idea was to get something downfield, and a guy would be open. You'd see Devontae or you'd see Lazard up downfield and wide open, or at least open enough for Rodgers to make a throw that could have potentially been a lot of points, and the line just cannot hold up for more than a second, and it's just it's hard. I mean, to have that happen, it's just you don't anticipate, these coaches don't anticipate mismatches occurring. They don't anticipate players being overmatched. It's just, I don't know, it's hard to really comprehend what the thought process is from these coaches. And then for Rodgers, Griff, I really do feel bad for Aaron. We'll talk about what's going on with him in a little bit, but just for this game to go the way it went, and for him, I really feel like he did as much as he could with the circumstances and everything. And, he made a lot of throws. The one to Devontae, that first one where it was that quick turn, quick, kind of just like a quick out that Devontae dropped while turning. It hit him right in the hands, Griff. I mean, that's just a tough one. And then the play right after, Devontae kind of just. I think Rodgers might have had Lazard there, but he wanted to go to Devontae, and Devontae was in the back of the end zone, went out of bounds. I don't know. And then, of course, Rodgers hits EQ right in the chest on a 2-point conversion. It did get tipped. It really didn't change the trajectory of the ball, but it bounces right off his chest. I mean, just if any one of these things went right, we would have won the game, and that's the disappointing thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. But the EQ thing, that's obviously it was what, a 5-point game at the end of it. So 2 points doesn't really matter there, but that 2 points helps you out because at the end we wouldn't have been in a position that where we needed the 2-point conversion. Maybe that affects LaFleur's thinking on the go for it on fourth down. I don't know. It's just God, man, God, so many stupid little things that just had to go wrong all in one game. It's really tough, and the thing is, coming out of all of our games this season, our losses at least, the thing you can point at where we really need help on offense is, we need another playmaker. We need another receiver other than Devontae Adams who can get open on his own. But the MVS had 115 yards. Lazard had a bunch of production too. It's tough to really point out what this offense needs to get better, to get over the hump. I really just think in this game, our best players just did not play well enough. We needed a better game from Devontae. We needed a better game from Rodgers. We needed a better game from LaFleur. And, the defense didn't help him out at all, but there were a lot of situations where we needed better play, and the offensive line too, which we talked about, Billy Turner especially, and Rick Wagner, who just could not block anything up front. It's everything. Everything was just, we had a good day on offense overall, but it wasn't good enough, and I don't know what you take from that.
Yeah, I mean, number one, the defense. Let's talk about it. First of all, um, I don't know what to make of Mike Pettin at this point. Packers fired special teams coordinator Sean Menenga. He'll be gone. It, and the special teams was just really bad this year, and that put us in position to lose a couple games. Didn't help us any on Sunday, but with the defense, I don't know what Mike Pettin's situation is going to be here because so I think what happened at the end of last season where we lost that other NFC Championship game, the fact that I even have to say another one is kind of hurtful, but the Niners game, that was like after a great defensive year where we started to fall off at the end of the year and especially in the run defense, and then things spiraled out of control in that NFC Championship game loss. I think LaFleur was just about ready to let go of him at that point, but they decided to. I think because he didn't sign a new deal or anything, he was a lame duck here this year with 1 year left on his deal. And they said, "Look, we're going to let you prove yourself here." And it was a rough start for him in pretty much all facets. And then as the second half of the season came, we started to get really tight. Probably played the best defensive ball that we've played in Mike Pettin's tenure. And then this game happens here, and I don't know. I mean, they didn't run on us much, and really they didn't. Brady didn't have a great game. Obviously, he threw 3 disgusting, awful, terrible picks, just awful throws. But he played well enough, I guess. I mean, I don't know, but the defense, just some of the things that just watching the game, it's like just Alexander not in position to make plays, and yet he did. I mean, he makes plays, but I just always see Alexander. All the Bucks did many times throughout the game was just shift the guy off of Alexander, and they're obviously in zone because Alexander's now out there with no receiver, and he's just kind of just sitting out there while Kevin King and Shandon Sullivan basically are man on man have to cover two guys, and then Will Redmond is on the field, 14 snaps in the game, and every time he's on the field, it's just a train wreck. He dropped a pick. The one chance he had to make a play, dropped a pick. I mean, I don't know. I think somebody could manage the personnel of this team better, and somebody could have a scheme that utilizes its players and works to the team's strengths and tries to hide its weaknesses. I don't think Mike Pettin does that. And there's an argument to keep him because of what we were able to do in this at the end of the season. But there's also the argument that says, can he get us over the hump without getting more great players? I don't think so. It's hard to really say if we should move on. And I think it's probably 50-50 if they actually do.
I think that's really well said. That's really because he just it feels like he just mismanages his personnel. Like, how much more money does Gutekunst have to spend on that side of the ball? How many more draft picks have to be spent on that side of the ball? It's ridiculous. The defense is loaded with talent, but it's such a zone heavy scheme, such a conservative scheme where our best players are rarely in position to make plays. And Jair is a prime example. Why is he a right cornerback? Why is he such a zone corner? Why don't we have him follow the opposing team's best receiver? Because he is locked down. We all know it. Everyone in the world knows it. Why is he spending time covering grass on the weak side of the field when the offense can just dictate who they're going to match up with? Uh,
Or running backs coming out of the backfield, because that'll happen. They just take him away oftentimes, offenses, by they'll just have a running back motion out, and then like Jair's the only one out there after a receiver motions to the other side to Kevin King and Shannon Sullivan, and then Jair's stuck covering a running back, and he's just basically like, they're just not going to look that way at all. And then, of course, we saw Brady just, make mistakes. The number one, that first pick by Alexander was just such an athletic play. I can't get over it. What a great play by him to get that tipped ball from Evans. And then the next play was, great as well to get the ball back for us there. But I just, him specifically, and he's not the only one, Darnell Savage, Adrian Amos, those guys aren't utilized to their best potential either. Even though Mike Pettin found a way to improve what he was doing with Savage specifically, I still think there's more to be done. I just don't understand what it's hard because when you're out there with Shannon Sullivan starting, I've said it all along, especially with Sullivan and King. I don't really like either of those guys starting, and it's the way it is. I mean, those are probably the two other guys that, besides Alexander, who else are you going to put out there besides those two? Nobody really. It's just a shame that we had to see it unfold this way, and really be the demise of what we were doing on defense. King was rough. We all know how bad he played, and I'm not surprised by it. I'm upset by it. But I've been saying all along that he's just so inconsistent. And when he's not good, when he's having one of those not good days, it's very, very bad. He looks terrible. And he just got embarrassed a lot of the time on Sunday. And the same thing for Shannon Sullivan. Tom Brady and company targeted him from the get-go, right out of the gate, and he was exposed. He couldn't cover Mike Evans. He couldn't cover Scotty Miller. He couldn't cover Chris Godwin. Everybody was taking advantage of him. And they've got to find some corners that can play, because King is not good enough and he's out the door. And Sullivan might be on the roster next year, but there's no way we can have him starting games for us. So, undrafted guy. It's just like it's the undrafted guy thing that we're obsessed with in Green Bay. I just don't know what the solution is.
Yeah, we're right back where we were when we drafted Kevin King. Cornerback is a pretty big weakness on this team, and yeah, I mean, you said it well. The Kevin King and Shannon Sullivan, they were just not good enough. They weren't good enough, and Tom Brady knew it. Byron Leftwich knew it. Bruce Arians knew it. They came into the game wanting to target those two guys and staying away from Jair Alexander, and it worked out pretty well for him. There was 3 big plays from Kevin King that were just horrible and embarrassing. The first play on the first drive, the touchdown to Mike Evans, that was some of the worst timing I've ever seen from a cornerback. He jumps with the ball like 30 feet in the air, 20 seconds before it actually gets to Mike Evans. He's jumping and he falls down. God, that was just embarrassing. And the second one, obviously, the Scotty Miller touchdown before halftime, and then of course the game ending penalty just had to be on Kevin King because of course it was. Yeah, just not a pretty game for him, and I do feel bad for the guy because I like him. I think when he's good, he looks pretty good, and since we drafted him, I've been a fan of his and wanted him to succeed. And it sucks that this was his last game in green and yellow, most likely, and it was beyond horrendous. Just Josh Jackson. Is he really bad enough to not be dressing for these games? How much worse is he than Kevin King? It can't be that much worse. And I can't remember who said this, but in a game where they weren't throwing flags, this was his time to shine.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, wow. I don't understand the thought process with him either, because he cannot be worse than what Shannon Sullivan or King was doing out there. Like you said, I think he matched up pretty well with a guy like Mike Evans, who is a physical guy, and I think Josh Jackson is a physical corner, who could and he's a long, big corner, Josh Jackson. I thought he would, and even Gronk too. I thought he could match up with Gronk, the kind of the way Amos was. So I don't know, and it's just hard because what who was going to come in. I mean, it's King, Chandon, and Alexander, and the fourth corner was I think Kavare Russell. At that point, I'm pretty sure Holman and Jackson were both inactive. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what they were going to do if one of those guys went down because Russell is just a special teams guy. So I don't know. I mean, I hope they value this position because I don't want to be stuck with Kadar Holman starting next year next to Chandon Sullivan with Jair, and then teams are just going to target left and right. I don't know. It's really difficult to see what the future holds at that position, and I don't know. I don't know what Josh Jackson's future is either because the fact that he wasn't dressing, especially for games like these where he might have an impact, that's not a good sign for him. I don't know what he's on a cheap deal, but who knows? I mean, decisions are going to have to be made, and they're going to need players at that spot. So we'll see.
Yeah, it really all comes back to Mike Pettin. This is where this conversation began. Like, if he's out the door, I don't know how likely it is that he's out the door. I've been thinking that it's pretty likely, but I don't know considering he's not under contract. If we do bring in a new defensive coordinator, that's gonna I'm looking forward to that. How Josh Jackson's able to perform with a new DC because I don't know what he did to Mike Pettin, but he did not like the guy for whatever reason. Wouldn't even dress him for the last half of the season. It makes no sense seeing the way King plays week in week out that he's not dressing. He can't get some snaps. I think we could have used him on Sunday. Um, and just like we said about the offensive side of the ball, where you mentioned that LaFleur, kind of ignored the players he had on hand for the scheme. It seems like Mike Pettin kind of falls into that as well, where he's not tailoring the scheme to benefit the players. He's just plugging them in and seeing how it goes. And it's just I've said it before this season how his thing is supposed to be the blitz. He's the blitz guy. He's going to send a creative blitz at you. You got no idea where anyone's coming from, and he doesn't do that. We were ranked like 26th in blitz frequency this season. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened to Mike Pettin, but he's certainly not the coach that we were hoping he would be back in 2018 when we brought him in. And Mike McCarthy brought him in. Matt LaFleur got the leftovers on that deal, and this is not his defensive coordinator. So I'm looking forward to who LaFleur might bring in because all the assistant coaches that LaFleur has brought in, they seem to be doing a pretty damn good job, and they seem to be pretty damn talented, including Nathaniel Hackett, who might be getting a head coaching job next season based on the things that our offense has been able to do. And our offense is not exactly like San Fran's. It's not exactly like LA's. It's kind of the Packers offense, which is what Matt LaFleur promised to do when he was hired. So I'm looking forward to who he can bring in on the defensive side of the ball because we saw the Rams this season. Sean McVay handpicked Brandon Staley, who's not at all what you picture as your the best defensive coordinator in the league because he's young. That's usually associate that with offense. You kind of picture the mean guy, the big strict guy on the defensive side of the ball, fat, bald like Mike Penton. But no, Brandon Staley, and he got a head coaching job this year. He was phenomenal in LA. So yeah, I'm interested to see who Matt LaFleur could scour through to bring in on the defensive side.
Yeah, there's options. I mean, a lot of people talk about Wade Phillips as a guy who's looking to get back into the coaching, just the coaching landscape. I'm not sure. I'd have to look at different guys. Another one is Jim Leonard of Wisconsin, Wisconsin Badgers football. People like him because he's had that defense playing well for years, and he's kind of been committed to Wisconsin. But if Green Bay offers him that kind of job, it might be tough for him to turn down. Those are just a couple names, but look, I'm not even sure if Pettin actually does get fired at this point. Number one, he's not under contract, so I don't see. Do they really go and sign him to an extension after this year? That's hard for me to see. I mean, he's not under contract after the end of this year.
Well, for me, it comes down to the play before halftime. that got Greg Williams fired. That should be enough right there to just end his career in Green Bay because if it didn't do it last year in the NFC Championship game where Jimmy Garoppolo completed 6 passes the entire game, then this has to do it, right?
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Not that I hope so, but I don't know. I don't know what I want. It's hard for me to say because what had the defense playing so well where no team was scoring 20 on us for such a long stretch of time.
All right, I'll tell you what, Bron. You ready? Mitch Trubisky, Jake Luton, Carson Wentz, Teddy Bridgewater, and Ryan Tannehill. I guess was the best quarterback we played in that span. But that's like an archaic offense. It's not too hard to stop Tannehill if you stop Derrick Henry, especially in the snow. They weren't fit for that game. So that was probably our most impressive defensive performance of the season. But I was saying all along, it's nice. It's good to see that we're not giving up 40 to horrible offenses. But I've fallen into this trap before with Mike Penton.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it depends. I don't know what LaFleur thinks at this point. Um, I don't know. I don't know what even he might think that there isn't any better options. Like I don't know if he has a guy in mind that is worth having this defense learn a new playbook for. You know what I mean? Like, and that's always a challenge to have a new scheme. We saw Matt LaFleur came in and the Packers did what they did, 13 wins in the last 2 years. So I don't know, but it's just another element to the story. I don't know. It's just such a tough. I haven't been this unsure about a firing of a coordinator in a while. This is a tough one, really. I really don't know what's going to happen.
Well, the Chiefs won a Super Bowl last year with Spagnuolo in his first season as defensive coordinator. After I can't remember who their previous one was, but he was horrible, and all the Chiefs fans wanted him fired. So it worked out pretty well for them. I don't know. It's because Mike Patton, he does get a little too much hate from me. I'll admit it. I hate on the man too much, but just some things I'm just never going to get out of my head with him, and I refuse to believe that he's the best option that for this defense. I refuse to believe that.
Yeah, there's definitely a case to be made about that. Um, yeah. Well, let's talk about the game just a little bit here. My one takeaway from what just a good thing, a positive thing, um, was that I thought Damon Harrison played really well, and it was nice. But obviously it doesn't even matter at this point. But I'd like to see him back next year, and I don't know how likely that is. But I know Brian really wanted to get him for a long time, so my expectation is that he could come back. And I think if he gets integrated and is like a true starter for this team, I think that's going to be a pretty good upgrade to have. And that, him next, I think we should just pair him next to Kenny Clark. Maybe there's a defensive coordinator out there that's smart enough to do that instead of having Tyler Lancaster. Um, and others. I just think having him next to Kenny would be really disruptive. We've talked about how those two guys are really the only two guys up front that can uh, take care of the line of scrimmage and disrupt it, have an impact on moving guys at the line. So I'd like to see him back. I thought he played really well, and I think he could have a future with this team if Brian Gutekunst is able to secure him on a cheap deal. He's a free agent, but I think having him back would be something that would kind of improve the team next year, but wouldn't cost us much with all the uncertainties surrounding the cap.
Yeah, Snacks played. He played all right. I don't know what took Penn so damn long to put him in the freaking game. God, I think Lancaster got hurt, and that's what finally brought him in for like series playing time. But I don't know if he's ready to. I don't know if he wants to play a full season in Green Bay. He did come here for the winter, which everyone's pretty sure is the thing that was turning him off from Green Bay. So I don't know. I don't know if he's. I don't even know if he wants to play football next year. But Dean Lowry, he's most likely getting cut this offseason for cap reasons. So the interior defensive line is still a big weakness on this team. But even with Snacks in the game, the pass rush was not good enough on Sunday. Brady had way too much time on most throws, and you saw whenever he was under pressure, he was making horrible throws, and he gave us 2 turnovers under pressure. But most of the game, he was just sitting in a clean pocket, just dealing, which is the last thing you want to do about Tom Brady. You're looking at guys like Zadarius Smith, Preston Smith, and Rashawn Gary. He's only in his second year and he played all right, but this is not what we need from the amount of capital that we've invested in this pass rush.
Yeah, Kenny Clark was really the only guy that actually was able to have pretty good impact on the game for the majority of it. Especially, he got to Brady for a sack, and he was really effective in the running game. I was pretty excited about how he played. But yeah, Z didn't play well enough. Preston, Preston ended up having actually, he's been getting higher grades from PFF in the pass rush department for the last few weeks on Z. But those guys have been playing better at the latter half of the year. But Sunday didn't go down like that, and Gary, after having so many great games in a row, didn't play well. Just it wasn't good enough. Just a guy like Brady, not good under pressure, and we saw that on Sunday. The few times he did get under pressure by Darnell Savage and Preston Smith, turnovers were created. For some reason, he just has a desire to just loft the ball into the air up for grabs for anybody. Jair took advantage of that twice, and Adrian Amos also took advantage of that, which hurt, even more because we had all these chances and it felt like we were, this was the turning point. This was the turning point. And to be able to get all these, it felt like fate that we were going to be able to come back.
It
But
really did, man. It really felt
yeah,
like fate.
and we just never, everybody, nobody was good enough. I'll just say that. The offense didn't, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that Matt LaFleur got away from a couple things and started doing that, just the 5 out, all wide, nothing in the backfield, empty stuff. That had played a factor. The pass rush of the Bucs was really getting to Aaron, and that had a large impact on the game. And also, just things just weren't clicking without Aaron Jones playing well, Devontae not playing at his best. MVS had some good downfield action, but really, you can only take advantage of when he's having a good game. He's good for a few plays. He's not, he's going to be a factor on just a few plays a game. There's nobody that Rodgers was really able to go to down in and down out. And that wasn't, to not get anything on those turnovers was hurtful. And then just the way it ended, really just so devastating I hurt for the fan base. I heard obviously for the organization and the players, but really the fan base. Just it's really devastating to have the emotional just roller coaster of the potential of getting back to the Super Bowl. It felt a lot like that 2014 16 nothing lead, demoralizing at the end down to a loss. Just it felt a lot like that. It stung worse because the future was a lot brighter in 2014 because we knew Rodgers was going to be around for a really long time. And now, who knows what's going to happen with Rodgers over the next few years. But yeah, we don't know how many more chances we're going to get with him to field a really good team like this that we had. A special team that felt like you said, Griff, had a destiny to get all the way back there and win it. It's just a devastating thing for the fan base. And my hope is that one day, hopefully next year, this team is good enough and somehow we improve from this year, both personnel wise and from within, coaching and just our own players getting better, that we can get back to the Super Bowl and not just get back, but win it, for Aaron Rodgers and just for really the whole fan base.
Yeah, this was it was such a special year, man. Just every week it felt like 2014. 2014 forever had been. I was so young. It was like really one of my first years really watching, and that's always been the highest point in my fandom, where we were the best team, and we got back to that this year. And Rodgers was playing at that level. The team around him was at that level, and it ended the same way. Fittingly enough, Rodgers. Rodgers played so well this year. He's going to win MVP. That's nice. If you would have told me at the beginning of the season that Aaron's going to have an MVP year and told me nothing else, I would have been happy. But, knowing that we were this good, knowing we were this close to going to the freaking Super Bowl, man, it hurts. It really does. It hurts so bad to think about. And it's so hard not to think about because there's so many things like, oh, imagine if that didn't go that way. It's really the closest I felt to the NFC Championship game in 2014, where after that game, all I was thinking about is, God, if Bostic just blocks on that freaking onside kick, Jordy Nelson standing there waiting. God, if Ha Clinton Dix just knocks down that 2-point conversion, we win the game. God, if Morgan Burnett doesn't slide on that interception, we win the freaking game. If Mike McCarthy doesn't run, punt, like he did so well back in the day, we probably win the game. If we go at Richard Sherman, who had one arm, we probably win that game. It's a lot like that.
All right, Griff, let's talk about Aaron a little bit here, this whole situation. I mean, just, all this stuff going on. Number one, let me just get this out of the way. Regardless of what ESPN or CBS or whatever, whoever tells you, Aaron Rodgers is not getting traded. Rodgers says all these things about, his uncertain future. Um, and I think I'll be here. I feel like there's no reason I shouldn't be back. That's because number one, he wants to be here. He wants to be in Green Bay. He's always talked about how he wants to retire in Green Bay, but he has this feeling that because they drafted a quarterback, that isn't going to happen. And it's unfortunate that that's the way he thinks. It's unfortunate that obviously that happened, where now he feels like he doesn't have a trust in the organization. Um, that's really the main issue. I don't know, maybe they just drafted this quarterback because they really liked him, and they thought he was going to go high, and he just kept falling apparently to them, even though they obviously didn't look at a mock draft. He just kept falling and falling, and they just wanted to get him because he's so talented or whatever. And maybe he's just this guy who's going to be a backup and could be traded potentially at some point. I don't know what they're thinking in the front office. Maybe Brian Gutekunst will talk about it tomorrow or Friday or whatever. But Rodgers has this I don't know why no one talks to him about it. Why doesn't Brian or Matt LaFleur or even Mark Murphy, if it had to get to that point, why doesn't anybody talk to him and tell him that he is valued and he is secure and he is the quarterback? Obviously, no one's communicated that to him, and that is the number one thing that I think is causing all this. I don't know why nobody said anything like that to him. It's put him in a spot where now he feels like he's running out of time, and now he feels like he could be on the outs this year even, because who knows? I don't know whether it's petty from him, to try to make them feel bad about picking a quarterback, that he's doing all this, that he's talking like this. I don't know if he actually believes it. It's hard to say, but just all of it is really just, he's not going anywhere this year. Mark Murphy said we'd be idiots to trade him. Matt LaFleur said he hopes he's here, and he was like, "What? I hope he's here. He's our leader." They both emphasized how great of a leader he is, and I hope they consider that when it's time where Jordan Love is now sitting here and Rodgers is still playing at the best. He just played his best season of his career statistically. This is a bit of a rant here, but I hope they look at what Rodgers has done as a person here for this organization. Uh, in response to the pick, he's been nothing but a better version of himself as a leader. He's had the best attitude, and now he's obviously put up something that they couldn't even have imagined, I'm sure, for a season. So I don't know what their thinking is. To me, Rodgers said the way he played didn't affect the situation. Andy Herman actually asked him closer to the playoffs, if the fact that he's going to win MVP and played so well changed his outlook on his future in Green Bay. Rodgers said it doesn't, just because of the quarterback thing, but I think it does, and I hope the front office realizes that this guy is the best player in football, evident by his MVP award, and I hope they don't at some point move on from him, just because they drafted this guy. And that's my rant about it. I have a lot of strong feelings about Aaron Rodgers and the whole situation. And I think it'd be a colossal mistake for this organization to move on from him in any capacity until he's ready to hang up his cleats and retire.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what it comes down to for you and I. Like, we're both, we both love Rodgers. Obviously, everyone listening to this loves Rodgers. But if go back to April of 2020 when they draft Jordan Love, like, assuming at that point they're fully expecting Jordan Love to take the starting job in 2-3 years, however many years. If you asked Brian Gutekunst, if you asked him, what would it take to end up trading Jordan Love? He probably, if Aaron wins MVP, ah ha ha. Like, who saw that coming? Guess what? He did win MVP, and now you're in a position where if you trade him, you look like the biggest joke in the NFL. He is not at the Brett Favre stage of his career. He's just not. And I don't know if that's enough to change their minds there with the Jordan Love thing, but it all goes back to the fact that I don't know why we're preparing for the future rather than maximizing the title window of one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game. You can't get 3 in a row. I mean, what are the odds that we're going to get 3 in a row? This could be a horrible take, but what are the odds of that? It's just, it was irritating at the time. It's still irritating that they would do that and that they would trade up for this guy who is probably gonna fall into the second round if we don't take him. I mean, in hindsight, you can't really complain about it considering the success we had on offense this year, and maybe it did light a fire under Aaron Rodgers. But yeah, I'm hoping that if their plan of action was to trade Rodgers here in the near future, I'm hoping that's not the plan anymore. And another thing, God, can everyone just stop talking about Aaron being on the move this offseason? It's ridiculous. He said one thing. He said, including myself, he said 2 words, and he chuckled as he said it. He's been saying petty comments like that all season long. Where you been, ESPN, CBS, Bleacher Report? This is not a new thing. And I'm watching that live, and my phone starts blowing up with all the beat writers. Oh, man, that sounded like goodbye. That sure sounded like someone who knows he's on the outs. Like, what are you talking about? And then Rodgers says on the McAfee show, no, I think I'm going to be here. LaFleur says immediately after the first interview, no, he's our leader. He's our quarterback. Then Mark Murphy, the freaking CEO, says, no, we're not idiots. We're not trading him. And to see this talk still be, these talks still be had in the media, and he's still in all the quarterback carousel this offseason is going to be incredible, and Aaron Rodgers is in that list of names. God, it is so annoying. And I don't know what it is about this guy, Aaron Rodgers, but he is treated like no other quarterback in the league. I swear to God, man. It's every offseason. There is some kind of drama, some fake, stupid. I'm trying not to curse. I'm trying not to say bullshit. It's every year, man. I mean, 2018, or no, let's start at 2019. when we hired LaFleur. Oh, the Bleacher Report article comes out about him and McCarthy. Oh, he's uncoachable, horrible. It's never going to work. Then even last year, after they went 13-3 when we drafted Love, oh, this is going to be horrible. LaFleur is sick of Rodgers' act. That's why he drafted Jordan Love. It's like, really? Are we doing this again, man?
Oh my gosh! Wow. I mean, this guy is. I cannot express how different Brady and Mahomes and Russell Wilson they're just treated so differently from what Aaron is. I don't know why. Is it, he was never a talker. Russell Wilson is out here doing his thing, talking and talking, and Brady is here, always he's the quarterback of, the winning team. Everybody, loves him, whatever. And Mahomes is, this pretty boy guy who, makes all these flashy plays that Aaron doesn't make, but Mahomes is always talking and talking. Rodgers has sat back for so many years and let his play do the talking. And the fact, I don't know, because he never talks, everybody always, speculates and tries to speak for him and wonder what he's thinking. He's the most intelligent quarterback in the league. I can't say ever, but in this current league, there's nobody smarter at the position than him. There's nobody smarter at any position than him. He just knows the game. He's not a showman. He's not this media lover. He doesn't, he's not gonna be this guy who gets up and gives speeches in front of cameras. He does what he does for his teammates, his coaches, his organization, and himself. And, he's not this poster boy that is going to be ESPN's favorite son or the NFL's face of the franchise. I mean, he's not this guy that is, the league's favorite. And he's still the best quarterback in the NFL, but he just gets so much hatred. Because why? Because he doesn't have patience for made up fake lies about him. He doesn't have the patience for, comments being made about the team that just aren't true, about him, about his relationships, when, nobody knows anything about those except him and the people in those relationships. I mean, I feel so much for him. Not only to not get this win here, but to have all of this now, him having to deal with all this talk about just these made up trade rumors, with people having no knowledge of anything. The cap he could not be traded. He couldn't. And people don't understand that he's never asked for anything other than to finish his career in Green Bay. He just said on the Pat McAfee show that he still dreams about that he still wants to be Kobe Bryant, Tim Duncan, Derek Jeter. He still wants that. And he still has to deal with these comments about the Packers and his relationship going nuclear, and him requesting a trade, even though it would destroy the Packers cap and they'd basically be paying Aaron Rodgers to not play for the team. People don't care about that. People don't want to talk about that. They just want to latch on to hatred surrounding him, because people love to hate Aaron Rodgers for whatever reason.
Yeah, man, they don't understand the actual logistics of it. They think Aaron is gonna go into Gutekunst's office and force a trade. Are you kidding me? Have they ever heard the man speak? Have they ever watched an interview with him? They think he's some college frat boy for whatever reason. They think he's an egomaniac, horrible teammate. He's a 37-year-old man with a mustache. Are you kidding me? He is not he's not some drama queen. He's
They
and
make him out as this evil drama queen, just like this diva, and he is nothing. He's just the complete opposite. He's a pros pro. He is absolutely the best leader that you could have, who doesn't lead by saying, "Come on, guys, let's win this." He's not this
let's
rah rah
win on
guy.
3.
Yes, right? He leads by example. He wants all of his players to know what it's like, how to practice, how to go out there, how to perform, how to approach the game, how to work hard. That's what he does. He says, "Everybody watch what I do because I've been through it. I've won a Super Bowl. I want my team. I'm going to be a leader. I know I have to be a leader. Uh, when the time comes, I will talk, but I want them to know how to perform and how to do it right. And that's what he does. He's not the guy who's just going to say the cliche thing and get everybody excited, because he doesn't subscribe to that. He subscribes to, doing it rather than just saying it. You know, walking the walk instead of talking the talk. That's how he subscribes to. That's what he responds to. So he knows other guys will respond to that as well.
He's his own player, man. I've never seen a player like him. He's got the Aaron Rodgers swag. He is, and I guess maybe the media has never seen anything like him either. So they treat him as the villain of the NFL every single offseason. Um, I think we've hit on everything here, Bron. I mean, I think I've enjoyed this. I've enjoying um kind of divulging all my sadness and everything I've been thinking over the past few days. You got anything left to say?
Well, look, there's a lot of questions about, not only just, I don't know what with Aaron Rodgers, there's rumors he wants a new contract, and I hope that's true because I want him in Green Bay for as long as he wants to be here. Um, if they, I expect it to be some kind of thing where Rodgers wants more security because he feels like he could be getting forced out. And if the front office is smart enough to realize that they've got the MVP and they have the privilege to have this guy playing quarterback for them, that they should give him more money. And look, let me also say this: people talk about Brady takes pay cuts, Breeze took a pay cut, Peyton Manning took pay cuts. That's because they had roster influence. Brady gets to bring in any guy he wants. He got Gronk out of retirement. He got AB out of, whatever situation he was in. He gets to pick and choose guys that he wants. They don't give that to Aaron Rodgers. So if they don't give him any input about the head coach, about the draft, about free agents, if they, especially guys, his own guys leaving, he didn't want Randall Cobb and Clay Matthews to walk out that door. He didn't want Jordy Nelson to get cut. I mean, he doesn't have a say. So if you're not going to give the league's best player, the most intelligent quarterback, if you're not going to give him a say on anything that he should be involved in since he is the leader of the team, if you're not going to give him a say in that, then he should demand top dollar because that's what he's worth. And I'm sick of this. Tom Brady's wife makes more money than him. She's a model. She makes tons more money than he does. He can afford to take pay cuts. Rodgers wants to get his money because if he's not going to get involved in those decisions where he would sacrifice money to potentially bring other guys in, he has no reason to do the organization any favors. I don't blame him for that at all, and I don't get that situation where he should be taking pay cuts to get guys on the team. That he wouldn't be getting guys that he even wanted in the first place. So for me, that's one point that I wanted to hit on as well, Griff.
Well, yeah, and the contract he signed 2.5 years ago, he's already underpaid. I think Tom Brady's
Yeah,
making more money than he is. I think Breeze made more money than he did this year. I
he's
mean,
making
he's
the same money as Jared Goff.
Yeah, I mean, I get it from that standpoint, but it also helps the Packers' cap flexibility too. So it's beneficial for both parties. It gives him insurance that he's going to be the quarterback of the Green Bay Packers for longer than just this year. It gets him more money in the future, more guaranteed money up front, and it helps our cap space this year when we have a lot of free agents to make decisions on, and we have, quite frankly, a lot of holes on this roster that we need to fill, and with some kind of veteran presence. So a contract extension there would definitely be very beneficial for both sides.
Yeah, of course. I definitely agree. And the other thing too is the fact that the cap space, like you mentioned, creating cap is going to be important. But we really have no idea what the cap is even going to look like because, there were talks of it going down a lot. And now there's talks of it where it could even, stay pat or even go up incrementally over the course of the next so many years. It could still even, sit at that number that it was last year. And there's really like $30 million in the balance here, and that's a lot of money, obviously. So we'll have to see what it actually ends up being. The Players Association is going to have to come to agreement with the league about where the cap will sit. But so much is in the air right now. It's just really hard to put a point on what who can come back from the free agents we have, who how much money we'll have to spend on other free agents. And there's just a lot of different situations going on, and I think this is going to be one of the craziest off seasons we've seen, if not the craziest, just because of uh, teams potentially having to make some really tough decisions like cutting star players to save money, including a team like the Saints, who are $100 million over the salary cap at this point. Uh, so teams are going to have to make a lot of tough decisions and maybe cut some elite talent. And I think that's where we could see a way that Green Bay adds some players, some veteran presence into some of those holes, like you mentioned, Griff.
Yeah, we're gonna be getting into all that stuff down the line here. We'll be here throughout the off season. Draft, free agency. We'll be talking about all this stuff, and training camp will be here before we know it, Bron, and hopefully in a much more normal season. That's exciting. It's gonna be fans next year. Mike, me and you might get to go to training camp. We've been talking about that for years. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see, but that's going to do it for today's episode. I've enjoyed this, Braun. I've enjoyed having someone to talk to about my pain. When will the pain end? I don't know. Hopefully soon, because it hurts still really bad.
Mhm.
Thank you all for listening. We'll be back here probably within the next couple weeks at least to just give you all a little preview of what we have in store for the offseason in Green Bay with free agency, draft targets, needs, all that kind of stuff. We'll be here. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks so much for listening this season. It was a great season. I've loved doing these every week with you, Bron. And hey, cheers to Super Bowl 56. We've been saying that for a long time. um, yeah, that's going to do it. iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, subscribe. Go Pack Go.
Yeah, thanks everybody. What an incredible, magical season that came to a devastating halt. But just really a special year. We all felt it. This was the year, and of course, it didn't end that way, but still very special memories and moments that we'll look back on. Great to be able to talk to everybody every week and just really have a lot of exciting memories. And it really was just a great season, and we appreciate everybody for listening. Always go Pack Go, and we're looking forward to hopefully finding a way to improve on this off season and just find a way to get back to a Super Bowl and win it. So thank you everybody for listening. Go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.